Vidadi Mammadov was among those who gave their lives for the freedom of the country. Overnight into January 20th, Vidadi Mammadov was in the square of the 11th Red Army, where a monument in memory of the victims of these tragic events is now erected. He came there because he believed in the Soviet power, in her mercy and humanity.
Во время этих событий 19 числа он очень часто приходил домой, уходил.
During this event on the 19th, he used to come home frequently. He was somehow excited, restless. When in the evening some people started driving cars on the streets, shouting and calling people to the streets with slogans, he left. When he left, we followed him to the elevator, asking him not to leave. He returned several times, repeatedly warning us, "Do not approach the windows." In general, when he left, we asked him for a long time to stay home. He said that I would be back very soon.
К окнам не подходить. В общем, когда он ушел, мы его очень долго просили, он сказал: "Я скоро вернусь".
However, Vidadi Mammadov failed to keep his promises. The Soviet government deprived him of not only faith in her humanity, but also of his life. He was shot in the back.
Потом мы его нашли в морге.
We found him in the morgue, the Semashko hospital. He was a good father, a consummate husband.
Очень добрый.
He loved people very much. He used to spend all his free time with the children.
Crushing cars and ambulance vans on their ways, tanks fired at fleeing people, and at the windows of apartments, a bus came under fire, and many of its passengers died, including 13-year-old Larisa Mammadova and Ilgar Ibrahimov. First-year student at a medical school in Irkutsk, Tengiz Turabov was among the passengers. Like thousands of other Azerbaijanis, he watched the events in his homeland with alarm. Tengiz came to Baku to visit his relatives and support them. That terrible night he was wounded. Tanks and infantry fighting vehicles blocked the road, and firing started. He couldn't understand what was going on. He said there was such intense firing at me. He said so many people fell upon me that he was trapped underneath them. He said when he got up he heard some people screaming, and they had already subjected the bus to fire. Tengiz used to dream of becoming a doctor and serving his people. He tried to assist harmed passengers in the bus. However, rushing into the bus, the executioners killed the wounded. The lethal wound has forever kept Tengiz at home. Mayhem caused by Soviet soldiers on the streets of Baku affected every inhabitant. Scientist Ismail Mursagulov had to go to Sumgait to take part in a meeting and tell his colleagues about the incident.
I saw tears in his eyes for the first time in my life. On our street, tanks crushed teenagers, running over them. All were crushed to ground, puddles of blood. He cried, saying that something terrible was happening on the streets.
The car in which Ismail Mursagulov, together with a group of other Azerbaijani scientists, was heading for a meeting at the Sumgait Institute of Polymer Materials, was ruthlessly run over by an armored personnel carrier of the Soviet Army. On January 22, 1990, Baku beat Pavel to kill sons and daughters of Azerbaijan. Hundreds of thousands of people then gathered on the Lenin Square, now Freedom Square, Azadlik. The funeral procession stretched to Highland part of Baku, the most elevated place in the city, which was chosen as a burial place for the victims of the terrible tragedy. People did not care that machine guns were aimed at them from the roofs of buildings, and they could become the next victims. Today, the Alley of Martyrs is a sacred place for every Azerbaijani. Relatives and friends of the victims, as well as officials who visited the country, school children and students visit this place. The flame in the center of the Eternal Flame Memorial will never go out, as the memory of the victims of the Bloody January will never be erased.